On today's episode of Left Off the Map, my brother Lee, my little boy Jack, and his little boy Harry are going on a very special trip to a magical place, a chocolate factory. It's called Amber's Chocolate Factory. It's just outside of Latrobe on the northwest coast of Tasmania. So we're gonna go check out that chocolate house and have some waffles while we're there. So today is all about chocolate. So I'm gonna show you a self-sourcing chocolate pudding. This is one of those chocolate puddings you can throw together when you've got no time to put a dessert together for the kids or family or friends coming over. It's one that my kids absolutely love, but I'm gonna adult this one up a little bit by adding some coffee. So we've got wet ingredients and dry ingredients, and there's a little tweak that you add at the end with some boiling water. But first, I'll show you my wet ingredients and dry ingredients. Just bring them together to make a cake batter. So wet ingredients we'll start with first. Butter, some milk, and an egg. So my butter, I've got about 150 grams of butter. Once that's melted, I'll add my milk, which is about 110 milliliters of milk, and then one egg. Bring that all together, and that's my wet ingredients, ready to go with my dry ingredients. My dry ingredients I'll pop into a bowl. I've got about 1¼ cups of flour. And we may correct this as we go. It's just you're after, so it's about 1¼ cups. You're after, so that's enough heat in there to melt my butter. Let that finish off. So I don't want it to be too hot when I add my egg, otherwise I'm gonna cook my egg. So 1¼ cups of flour, self-raising flour. Then we've got about the same amount, a little bit less, probably about 3/4 cup of sugar, because we're going to be adding a good amount of sugar to the top to create the sauce for the self-sourcing pudding. So about 3 cups of sugar, some cocoa, about 2 tablespoons of cocoa. I'm going to add some more cocoa later to the sauce. And then a small amount of coffee. This is where you're getting into the adult side of the dish. So a little bit of coffee, so it's chocolate and coffee flavoured self-sourcing pudding. Mix all that together. And now we've got our dry ingredients ready to take on our wet ingredients. Make a little well in the middle so we can bring all that together. Have a spatula. Butter is melted. Add my milk to my butter. So I'm going to add my milk and my butter into the well. Pop my egg into the well. And because this is a pudding, we don't need to worry about it being nice and light and fluffy. You can work it pretty hard. So you can break that egg up in the middle of the well. And then bring in all of your dry ingredients to create your batter. Erring on the side of caution, slightly stiffer than a normal cake batter because we're going to add that sauce. So you can err on the side of caution and go slow, but we've nailed that. So that sort of thickness in the batter where it sort of folds over on top of itself, that's what you're after. So we've got that. I'm pretty happy with that. The only thing, you could add a little bit more cocoa to it if you want it to be a little bit more chocolatey, and you could taste it and add a little bit more coffee to it if you wanted it to be a little bit more. I'm pretty sure this isn't a word, and I'm going to say that before I say the word coffee. If you wanted it to taste more of coffee, you could add. So don't write in and say, Ben, you used a word that doesn't exist. I'm aware of that. So that's our batter done. We've got 2 little cake tins. Well, they're not really cake tins, they're, what would you call them? Oven trays. So I'm going to fill these up with our batter. So half into one, half into the other. It should come about 3/4 of the way up side. Oh, yum. So this is the bit that's going to go against everything that you've probably ever done and thought of doing in baking. Not this bit, the next bit. A little bit of brown sugar into a bowl. Some cocoa to go with that. So we're creating our chocolate sauce now. Mix those 2 together. Sprinkle that on top of your pudding. Like so. And then a little bit of salt. Wherever you've got sweet, always add salt. It just brings out the sweet a little bit more. All right, so this is the bit that'll go against everything you've ever done in baking. We need a kettle. So we're gonna put the kettle on. I want boiling water, and I'm gonna pour boiling water over the top of both of these cake molds. Now, it seems weird, but that's how we're gonna create our self-sauce for the self-saucing pudding. You want about 1 centimetre on top of each cake. What will happen then is as the cake cooks, it will rise through the water. That water will fall to the bottom and it'll mix with the brown sugar and the cocoa and create our sauce. So they have been in there for about 25 minutes at 180 degrees. 185 degrees actually. That's simply because I like that little bit of a crust on the top. And you can see the sauce is bubbling up around the outside. You've got your cake sitting in the middle and that sauce is sort of underneath, which is exactly what you want from a self-saucing pudding. So they are my chocolate and coffee self-saucing pudding. Now we're going to head off to catch up with Lee, Harry and Jack as we have a look at Amber's and have some waffles. Have you been here before?
Lost count how many times.
But yeah, have you had the waffles though?
No, I haven't had the waffles.
Yeah.
I always just come in here and grab as much chocolate as I can and get on the move back to Victoria normally.
So Igor, obviously chocolate, Belgium, added waffles to the mix after the chocolate got going.
Yep.
And it's become as well known as sort of a house of waffles as it has been for the chocolate that's created here. But Igor also has the rarest chocolate in the world. He has the only license in Australia to import it.
Really?
And it's brilliant. Okay. So nice.
So is that going to be with the waffles, or do we have to buy
No, you have to buy it special. You have to buy that special.
All right, that'll be a little...
It's called Fortunato No. 4.
Yep.
Named after the farmer that discovered it. And it's unreal.
All right.
So good.
I'm going to get me a block of that.
Then we might go to the shop on the way out and we'll get Uncle Lee some of the rare chocolate, the famous chocolate. Or we might get Dad some. Dad loves the ginger chocolate.
What have we got here? Waffles, and what's on top of the waffles? Strawberry, and it looks like we're going to be able to have ice cream for breakfast.
When was the last time Mum let you have ice cream for breakfast? Yeah, never. So, Paul, I think you've got the job that my little boy wants to grow up and have, to be around trains all the time. You're the president of, what's the association?
The proper name is the Van Diemen Light Railway Society.
Yep.
But we trade as the Don River Railway, so that's what most people know us as.
Yeah.
And yes, most little boys would like to drive a train.
Yeah, that's his passion. He absolutely loves trains. If I need a couple of hours of quiet, I'd take him into a room and let him set up a track.
Yes.
And that keeps him occupied forever.
My grandchildren are the same, and they love to come here for a ride.
My brother is in there at the moment. They're playing on the little train track in there and they're looking at the museum. He's got them and they'll buy tickets in a minute and we're going to go on.
Excellent.
When we go on, how far along do we go?
So the track runs for 3.5 kilometres to what's called Coles Beach.
Yep.
And we stop there just long enough for the train locomotive to run round and couple up at the other end.
Yep.
So about 10 minutes, and then we head back.
Yep.
But in the future, probably towards the end of next year, we hope to run between here and Penguin on the main line. Which,
That'd be good.
Which will be quite a more extensive trip
Yep.
for people to come, and perhaps you might like to come and have a trip with us.
Yeah, that'd be nice. The longer Jack could be on a train, the better. He
Yes,
just
I
loves
bet.
it. This isn't steam, Pat, it's a diesel.
So this diesel locomotive is one built in Tasmania in 1970.
Yep.
It's what's called an English electric.
Yep.
So the diesel motor drives a generator which drives electric motors.
Yep.
And so when the Tasmanian Government Roads were finished with that, the Society acquired it and basically rebuilt it because it was sitting around unused.
Yep.
And we run it regularly, but we do run steam, usually of a Sunday if we can.
Yeah.
But the locomotive's just coming out of the 10-year overhaul at the moment. And,
Yep.
But we hope in the next couple of weeks to have steam running of a Sunday again.
Yeah. I think my little boy's been on the steam one with his grandfather.
Yes.
And loved it. Just there's something about the train sort of chugging along with steam coming out.
You can't beat it.
Yeah, you can't beat that feeling. So this is, does it run all day, every day?
So at the moment we run Tuesday to Sunday.
Yep.
Each day of the week, except for Christmas Day and Anzac Day. We
Yep.
don't open those days.
And people are obviously still interested in coming and sitting on a train and feeling what it was like back when trains were used quite regularly.
They are, because if you look at Tasmania, there's not much opportunity to ride on a train.
So the train itself isn't the only thing that's here. There's a museum that's inside here.
Yeah, so there's a small museum in there which has old pieces of uniform items, various memorabilia, old phone switchboards, things like that.
There's lots of lanterns in there.
Yes, all sorts of
heaps of them.
things from the early days of rail in Tasmania.
Yeah.
There's a signal box, which was the original signal box in Devonport.
Yep.
So people can go in there and have a look and play with the levers. This station was originally the railway station at Ulverston.
Yep.
There's a turntable there which came from the Midlands, which is a two-person manual pushing around.
Yeah.
And then there's the workshop where we do all our heavy engineering in there.
And is it volunteers that look after it?
So yes, everyone here is a volunteer except for one paid employee who's our general manager.
Yep. Oh, nice. Well, I'm going to go and have a look in the signal box because we looked at the little museum before.
Yes.
I'm going to go in and get the kids and get Lee and we'll get going.
Look forward to travelling
Thank you,
with
mate.
you, Ben. You're welcome.
So to continue our chocolate theme, I'm going to make a brownie, a classic chocolate brownie. Well, I'm adding a few little extra ingredients. So I'm going to make a malt and almond chocolate brownie. Now brownies are pretty simple to make, but there are a few little tips that I'll give you along the way. I'm going to make it all in a bowl, so all the ingredients will go in together. Get your double boiler ready. So I've got a little bit of water in this saucepan. My bowl on top, I've got some dark chocolate, 1 block of dark chocolate and some butter. And that's about 250 grams of butter. And then about half a block of milk chocolate. I like my brownie to be not quite The dark chocolate's great, and if you're a real chocolate lover, you'll love a dark chocolate brownie. I like the dairy chocolate, the milk chocolate, a little bit more than I like the dark chocolate. So I'm just adding a little bit of that in, just take out some of that bitterness that you get with the dark chocolate sometimes. I just want to melt that. So basically I'm making a ganache with those ingredients. Once they come together, once they melt, I'm going to start adding in my dry ingredients, or my eggs first, and then I'll start adding in my dry ingredients. So into my butter and chocolate mixture, I've added 4 eggs, one at a time, whisking them in. And now we're ready to add that's all of our wet ingredients in there now. So we're ready to add our dry ingredients. So first, 270 grams of brown sugar. So sugar, 270 grams of sugar. At this stage, until you sort of add your flour, which is why I'm going to add my flour right at the end, you don't want to overwork your batter when you add your flour. So get all of this mixed in before you put your batter in. So sugar, get that mixed in. Your almonds, get them folded in. Your milk powder, get that folded in. Your cocoa nibs, get all them folded in before you add your flour. So speaking of almonds, about 150 grams of chopped almonds. You can toast these almonds if you want to before you put them in, or you can have them raw. I like them raw. So fold them in. Then, this is malted milk powder. This is where the malt component of this brownie comes from. So we've got about 70 grams of malt milk powder. Fold that in. And then cocoa nibs, about the same amount of cocoa nibs, 70 grams of cocoa nib. Fold that in. And now we're ready to add our flour. So 170 grams of flour, about 1 3/4 cups. And you don't want to overwork the flour because it'll end up becoming quite cakey instead of brownie. We want it to be really dense, really almost as if it doesn't set. And then once it cools down, it will start to set. So if you overwork this flour, you'll end up with more of a cake than you do a brownie, which, I mean, that's not a bad thing. It's just going to be a really dense, rich cake, but we want this to be a brownie. So about 1 3/4 cups. But you kind of know the texture that you're looking for with the brownie batter. So fold that in. Remember, we don't want to overwork this, so it's just a gentle fold. And really, the less flour you can get away with, the more like a brownie rather than a cake this mixture is going to be when it cooks out. So I'm really happy with that. So that was probably a touch under 170 grams. And you can add extra texture by adding different things. If you want some fruit in there, if you want to put some cranberries, some dried cranberries, you can put that in. Whatever you want to add to it, if you want to give it more crunch. If you wanted to leave the milk chocolate that I added because I like more of a milk chocolate brownie, you could add that milk chocolate if you like the dark chocolate. You could add those milk chocolate, crushed up milk chocolate now, and you get those big sort of chunks of chocolate through your brownie. This is your chance to add in those textural things if you want to. All right, so into our baking tray. My oven is set at 180 degrees. This is going to take anywhere between 35 and 45 minutes to cook out. So that'll take about 35 to 45 minutes in an oven at 180 degrees. Now, depending on how thick your brownie is, will depend on the time that it takes in the oven. Mine was quite thin, so it's going to take about 35 minutes to cook through. That brownie is very, very versatile. Like I said before, add in the texture that you want, and you can adjust the amount of dairy, milk, chocolate to the amount of dark chocolate in that recipe as well if you want to. It's a good base recipe. And it's a great way to end today's episode, which was all about chocolate. Try your chocolate at home and get your fix and let us know how you tweaked that brownie recipe.